2. A young lady should never sing while cooking. She will marry an aged man. The first true test of my new character was Peg, hired on to keep house for us. Peg was maybe 25, taller than Mama, with strong arms and a long nose with and curly hair bouncing off her head. Peg liked to sing while she worked and didn't mind that our busiest days day our busiest day was Saturday. My daddy doesn't want me to have a beau, she admitted. Saturdays last forever without a dance to think about. At first I thought Peg was as slow as I pretended to be. The way she shook her head from side to side while Mama gave instructions. Then I realized she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Mama tossed in extras so Peg would have something to gossip about in town. Turn the pillows inside out on the bed, Peg. Make the spirits restless and reader to communicate. Yes, ma'am. And never lean the broom against a bed, or the person who sleeps there will soon die. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. And Peg? Yes, ma'am. Call me madam. Peg. Not yes, ma'am. I am a clairvoyant, not a butcher's wife. Yes, ma'am. If someone knocks, Peg, tell her I'm with a client and make an appointment for the next day. But, ma'am, that would be a fib. My clients are not all among the living, Peg. To receive news from the other side, I must keep contact with the spirits every day. Oh, said Peg. Precisely, said Mamma. So it is not a fib to tell people at the door that I am otherwise engaged, even if you cannot see my customer. Yes, ma'am. We soon had the opportunity to test the system. A day or two later, Peg answered a knock while Mama and I were tidying the front room. Madam is engaged with the dead, we heard her say. If you come tomorrow, Miss Romeo, she can see you at 11 o'clock. Well done, Peg, said Mama, sending her off with a smile before turning to me. Annie, you heard the name. Why are you Galding? Go! I hurried to the window and caught a glimpse of a green jacket as Mrs. Romeo rounded the corner. I snatched my hat and took my notebook and slipped out the door to follow her. It wasn't my first time out. I'd practiced in Holly, and I'd already circled Peach Hill a few times, observing where women gathered and gossip flowed. I pinpointed the best places for eavesdropping: the benches in the square, the front tables in Bing's Cafe, and wandering around Clar, the green grocers. Women seemed to loiter there long beyond buying potatoes and peas. I wrote in code I made up so no one else could decipher it. After it and after each exaggeration, I unscrambled my code and cataloged wherever I heard, no matter if they were clients yet or not. Jane Ford, husband likes fried eggs sprinkled with brown sugar. Both parents crossed over, died in effluvia. Favorite phrase, whatever next? Miss Bertley, son stutters, owes at the bank, but has a teapot full of safe coins. Poodle crossed over hit by a motor car. The smallest details make the biggest impact in in the darkened room of a fortune teller. But when I followed Miss Romeo, it was the first time I plunged into the heart of the town with an active mission. I let my tongue flop out between my lips. I shuddered and I hopped into Main Street. What did it matter? I'd behave. I didn't know anyone here, and we probably wouldn't be staying long enough to change that. On Thursday after lunch, I guessed that shopping for supper would be Mrs. Romeo's quest. Sure enough, inside Carlaw's, I saw the green jacket next to an ivory-colored sweater. I crept close and kept my head down. The two ladies stood over the bins of onions and potatoes. I raised one melon after another to my nose, smelling each one for ripeness and listening as hard as I could. Just don't know what to do, Miss Romeo was saying. My Rose is the biggest flirt I've ever saw, and going straight to hell if she keeps it up. That Joe Mackey, his hands all over her out on the porch last night. The other woman's voice was softer, hard to hear. No surprise, pretty face, full figure. Full figure! Jane, she got breasts the size of a cabbage. Make no mistake, she takes after my Frank's mother. God rest her soul, who had her under thing specially constructed in Boston. A clerk appeared to weigh Miss Romeo's potato. The ladies hadn't seen me. I put down the melon and went outside to scribble some notes. My little notebook had a slim gold pen attached in a snug leather loop. I hammered a hole through the spine and hung the book around my neck on a length of blue ribbon. When the ladies came out, I leered at them, jiggling my eyeballs the best I can. Whatever next. The cream cheese sweater lady was Jane Ford, already in my file. I heard there was an idiot coming to town. She belongs to the new fortune teller on Needle Street. Poor witless thing, said Miss Romeo. All the troubles in the world can't match that, eh? Aggie, one look at this child and I'm happy to have my Rose, said Miss Romeo, hussy or not. People will say anything in front of an idiot. I watched through the window while the butcher wrapped sausages for Miss Romeo. She came out of the comber carrying a brown paper package and went into the post office. She came out of the post office chatting with a woman who wore a Berkeley hat. On the open street, I couldn't hear anything more. I followed Miss Romeo all the way to her home on Daly Avenue. One glance at the porch showed a pair of blue painted rocks flanking a big pot of Grimson Generous. I passed by only once, noticing the chintz curtains and the Model T in the driveway. I had plenty for Mama now. I wandered back to the square and found a place to sit near the statue of a soldier on a horse, as close as I dared to a group of kids my age. I knew it would take time, but intended to learn the name of every child I encountered in Peach Hill. I was watching for who liked whom, who was me, and who might be my friend if I were Mama's partner. The prettiest girl was Sammy Carlaw from the Green Grocer's family, and Delilah the policeman's daughter who didn't have a mother. Those two were the honeys that drew the bees. They had a gang of boys with shadowed upper lips and foggy voices who buzzed around them, showing off Howley, Frank Ramon, who I guess was our new client's son, and somebody called Fritz. The not as pretty girl seemed to have more fun than the popular ones, making up songs and practicing the shimmering or the collections there right there in the square, where there were younger kids too, eating candy or kicking a ball around. Oh, and no Oh, and one odd person lurking behind the statue, a girl but wearing boys' overalls. She was not exactly hiding, but not joining in either. I could read the signs. She was spying like me. Looked she saw me looking and turned her back. Hey, Sammy. Sammy Salone. Sammy's home. A boy I hadn't seen before strolled into the park and leaned against a tree. I might as well say it. He was the most wonderful boy I've ever seen. He didn't wear a cap like the others. His black hair flopped and blew around in his handsome face. Face like shiny black hair. I quickly learned that he'd been away at his uncle's farm for the summer and come back in time for the new school's term. I forgot myself and stared with both eyes, admiring his face, his shoulders, his voice, his laughing voice. Someone sat on the other end of my bench. It was the particular girl expecting me. Ha, she said. What's your game? I jerked my elbow into motion and produced a tremor so severe that I fell off the bench by accident. I jumped to my feet with hot cheeks. The girl was gone in a flash, but the rest of them were looking at me. Hey, Teddy, called the elder boy named Howley. See the idiot over there? I froze. I heard a ripple of choking back laughter. Uh-huh, said the one named Teddy. He was in overalls, his hair bristled like hay. I dare you to touch her. That's all you gotta do. Touch her and run for your life. What do I get? Said Teddy. Even in my graduation, I had to admire his practicality. You get to tell us if she's got skin like a lizard, said Howley. No thanks, said Teddy. I'll give you a penny. Delta stood up and showed a pink coin purse. I double dare you. She's the ugliest thing I ever saw, and you'd be a brave big fellow to go anywhere near. She held out a coin to the little boy who was now tempted. I could see. I felt sick and sweaty all over. My eyes were so tired and my tongue was dry. I backed away as Teddy tiptoed forward. Leave her alone. What she gotta do to bother her? It was my new hero, Sammy Sloan. It was too late. Teddy darted towards with his fingers outstretched. I turned and ran, persecuted by hooting and jeers. Hey, moron! I felt a sharp bite on the back of my arm and then another on my neck. Got her. Did you see that? Good shot, Frankie. Like hitting a giant squirrel. They were throwing stones at me. I clammed my hand to the stinging spot above my collar and felt a sticky dribble of blood. I kept running, dragging sobs escaping like a stream from a locomotive. Peg found me crying in the kitchen. I'm ugly, I'm so ugly. Oh, now, said Peg. There. She washed the scratches and patted my back till I settled down. I might have been her baby sister. Peg loves Anne, she begged. she began, slowly as always when talking to me. Peg knows better than the lunks in the square. You'd be quite pretty if you wore a cute hat that shaded your eyes. Never mind the vacancy between your ears. There's a vacancy between your ears, not quite so pretty as your mama, but near enough. Try closing your mouth if you can, and wash your hair once in a while, for pity's sake. She held me and leaned me over the sink while she gave me my head a scrubbing. Is this what normal mothers do? I wondered. She dosed my hair with freshly squeezed lemon juice before the final rinse. Annie loves Peg, I said, playing my part. Alone in my room later, I panicked. What if pretending to be stupid and clumsy was turning me stupid and clumsy? I made myself recite poems backwards and the day of every battle during the Civil War. I practiced juggling using 2 shoes and a hairbrush. I sat with the mirror in my hand, twisting my face into Oddity grimace, and then just staring at my own reflection. Was I pretty at all? Could a boy ever look at me and think so? Could Sammy Salone? In the morning, I crawled into my corner while Mama was fixing her hair. She didn't like me near when she was working, but I found a way around that. I inched the big chair in front of the room, such a position that I could sit behind with my knees scrunched up and my back in the crook of the corner. Miss Romeo arrived promptly at 11 o'clock. Mama sat down and held her hands for a moment. I could read your palm, Miss Romeo, Mama began, but the vibrations from the spirit world are very strong this morning. There is an older woman here from the other side with a message for you. She has a monthly blossom, and she says she's family but not related by blood. Miss Romeo gasped. Mother Romeo? Frank's mother? She died of the influenza 5 years ago, May 1919. She's worried about your daughter, said Mama. Your daughter who's named for a flower. That's Rose, said Miss Romeo. But I'm seeing another flower too, Mama said, bright red like passion. I don't know, Rose is my only girl. It could be a real flower, Mama promoted. Said Miss Romeo. We have geraniums on the porch. That's likely it. The porch and passion, Mama's voice trailed off, letting the world simmer. I don't like to think of Mother Romeo watching that. She is suggesting that you and your husband sit out on the porch in the evenings in the blue rockers. Rose won't be able to entertain her young man there in the dark. Miss Romeo was speechless. You have another child, said Mama. A boy. Is he named for his father? How do you know that? Young Frankie. His grandmother has a message for him, too, said Mama. She wants him to be nice. No more rough language. No more slinging stones. Mama, Mrs. Romeo sighed. I'll tell him again and again. He doesn't listen to me. Stop feeding him fatty meats, said Mama. No more sausages. A tough boy needs cauliflower and Brussels sprouts to make him more sensitive. That part was my idea. I only wished I could have watched him at supper that night.